Every year, my cousin discs up the garden where my grandparents had their garden. And every year we think, maybe we'll plant something. And it just goes terribly. But it is the smell of the tomato plants that makes me think of my childhood. Playing in old barns, making up games, wandering around. I love being in that place. And most of the work that I've done, I think, springs from that. I have not had a lot of things in life, but I have that place. And it makes a lot of things possible. It's a little complicated being in a place like Warren County, because often the narrative is that success is moving away and getting a good job somewhere else. And yeah, I knew I wanted to come back. There's work to be done here.
The furniture plant that was here has closed. The shirt plant that was here is closed. Everything's been closing, so.
Most of the young people are leaving, and they're not coming back. And there are not that many job opportunities, at the present time.
I think that's the biggest risk.
It's a completely rural county. I mean, our largest town maxes out at about 1,100 people. That's Norlina. And here in Warrenton, we've got 900 people.
So we have this opportunity to work with Enfield Middle School in Halifax County. And I visited their farm a couple weeks ago, spoke to their farm manager, who's also the agriculture.
Most economic development energy is focused on incredibly small industrial parks that represent a tiny percentage of a county or a town's land base. That's okay, but there's also a lot of other land.
People remember in this place when the land was used a lot more intensively than it is today, when the land produced a lot more food than it does today. So they remember a landscape that worked.
Put in a deer fence or some way to control.
We named our organization Working Landscapes because we wanted to kindle a conversation about what it takes to make a landscape that works and a landscape in which people can work.
Has actually killed some of the plant.
That's heat related?
Yes. That's before you put this tarp on it.
Okay. Well, this tarp is probably pretty helpful.
Yeah. Gabe and Carla contacted me, and I'm not sure where they got my name from. There aren't that many farmers left, so it's not hard to find a few. In Warren County, when I first came back to farm, there were probably between 200 and 300 active farmers who made their living farming, and now we're probably talking about less than 30.
Are you doing many green cabbages?
Yes, quite a few, and a lot of them will be planted over here that is just starting to come up.
Yeah.
Red cabbage and Savoy cabbage, things that your commercial growers don't grow. So I've worked with them for the first 3 or 4 years. I don't think we really made any money growing product, but I could see that there was potential.
The economy and the food system that we have did not emerge overnight. It's not going to change overnight, but you have to start with something.
When agricultural supply chains started to bypass small towns, those small towns lost their economic function, and they've been struggling ever since. We're trying to restore small towns to their economic function in the rural landscape. And that's by adding steps to the supply chain that take place locally.
We buy collards from local farmers. We chop them and bag them and sell them to schools. Right? And I think we get a lot of value out of having started with something that's so simple and sort of mundane.
One of the intangible ways that I think local food system approaches mobilizes a community is that everybody gets it.
Farming and food are really familiar concepts. What's not familiar is the concept of asset-based economic development. but who cares? That's what it is.
It's a framework that allows people to sort of connect the dots.
How can California ship cantaloupes all the way to North Carolina and make a profit, and we can't do it right here?
What's needed most for the local food system to grow here is dedicated markets. There's a farmer in the community, Victor Hunt.
And he had read about a project in Florida where they chopped and bagged collards for school districts. Schools are often the biggest buyer of food in rural communities. They feed a known number of children every day.
So they're reliable, large buyers of food who have been buying almost nothing from the farmers in their own communities.
I've worked with several nonprofits that their goal was to help farmers, and I kept saying, this is the project we ought to do, but none of those organizations felt the same.
One of the pitfalls in doing economic development is it becomes this sort of top-down, elite-driven model instead of a sort of grassroots, bottom-up approach.
When I talked with Gabe, and he thought about it, and he said, that might be what we need.
Let's go check it out. So we convinced the child nutrition director to come with us. I think he was a little skeptical.
We went down and we saw their collard chopping operation, and he said, well, maybe we could also do cabbage. And so we went and we got a cabbage, and they chopped up the cabbage. Yeah, so we were all really excited. Our chopped collard green product was developed with a child nutrition director specifically in order to optimize plate presentation. Because if you're trying to get a kid to eat collard greens, those collard greens better be looking nice.
One of the neatest thing about working with young people who I consider my peers in a lot of ways is that we all offer each other feedback. By the end of the season, the staff at the Produce Center are extremely cohesive. And that's because the employees are well trained, and they've sort of gotten used to the system that they have helped create in a lot of ways.
If you aren't patient, you would never work on local food systems to begin with. There are setbacks at every step of the way.
We started out quite small, basically serving just Warren County and maybe another district.
The volumes just aren't great enough to even justify turning on the machines and calling a crew to come and chop.
One of the challenges in small business incubators generally has been this issue of scale, right? Where you create this physical incubation space and it's underutilized. Well, if you sort of elevate the scale to a more regional level, it can help address some of that.
The natural way to develop regions is to start by looking at the large urban markets. Those urban markets can be the anchors of regions. They have the volume that's necessary to make a food system develop. The challenge is moving food throughout a region. So we have farmers here in the community, we have markets in the region, but it's not well served by distributors. We need someone to carry that product. For the past year, we've been working closely with another nonprofit organization called Farmer Food Share. And the role that they've started to play is a role of regional distributor.
We were working with 8 cases a week with Working Landscapes, and now we're up to 100. We had our first pilot season with Durham Public Schools, which has been really great. They are always asking for the greens.
Farmer Food Share, they aren't simply driven by the profit motive, they're driven by a mission to make a food system more sustainable. And it's important to have partners like that, because sometimes a commercial partner, you have one bad season with that partner, you're done. There is no relationship anymore. A mission-driven partner has the patience to start working on building a resilient system. A larger customer like Durham County Schools enables our venture to become more efficient. As you start to build supply chains that serve urban markets, you're developing the volumes that make you able to efficiently also start to serve rural markets. And a more robust food system has been developed. We have served 90,000 students through this project. We may not be able to compete with the volumes of big California growers, but we can definitely compete on freshness. Local food doesn't have to cater to a sort of boutique market. That's not how we've structured this project, and we're making it work.
Well, initially I thought, okay, here are two Duke grads that are, think they know everything, and, they don't know anything about starting a business. They've proved me wrong. They've raised some grant money and gotten into profitability.
We've received more funding from USDA than any other source. However, we also received crucial funding from the state. The reason we pursued the Chopped Produce Initiative as a public-private partnership is that there's some types of funding that local governments have access to that we as a nonprofit don't.
Grants are like venture capital to us in the rural areas.
When local governments are thinking of investing in food system infrastructure, like a food processing facility, they need to look beyond their own jurisdictions. You can look locally when you're assessing supply. What can your farmers grow? What's available and excellent in your community? Warren County is famous for cantaloupes. But then in terms of market, you need to see what neighboring counties, even several counties away, what they're doing. What we don't need is for everyone to go and set up a greens chopping facility. They would all fail. There's just not enough market to support that kind of thing. Communities within a region can work together if they develop complementary infrastructure. If this community here develops a greens chopping facility, and then this facility over here is doing purees, and this facility over here is doing shelled beans, and this facility over here is doing frozen products, that means that a truck can run a route among those different facilities and have a reason to make each stop. Trucks that go in one direction with one product can return with a different product. And as a region, you start to have more to offer because all four of those facilities can jointly serve a much larger market.
The advantage of sort of having a regional focus is that you're a larger dot on the map.
That connection between rural farms, small towns, and cities in North Carolina is not an abstract one. It's one that has been the basis of a large portion of the state's economy. The trick is to translate from that to a highly perishable product like vegetables.
We sold more spring crop than all the collards and cabbage and everything we've done previously total.
Really?
Yeah. The volumes have really expanded significantly. So that not only are we doing something because it's the right thing to do, it's also something that potentially is a profitable business operation.
The farmers that are in the rural communities are really the ones who are able to supply a wholesale market with volume and price.
I think within the next few years, through collaboration with other organizations and just thinking about regional connections, we'll be able to provide some real solutions at a considerably larger scale than we're doing now.
Rural communities aren't large enough to set the conditions or control the forces that they're subjected to, but they can determine how resilient they are in the face of those challenges. Get back once they get to Warrenton, then they're picking up a second finished load.
If I had to put my finger on the one thing that can make a difference in small rural communities when it comes to economic development, it's that sense of what the possibilities are. You know, a sense of what can be.
We have to make the sauce, which Sally's doing.
So one thing that I have unequivocally learned is that there's a difference between wanting something to exist in the world and wanting to be the one who does it. There's a quote that I like by Khalil Gibran. Work is love made visible. There's work to be done here. It's the work of trying to figure it out. It's seeing something that you can't quite see yet, right? But you kind of see it. It's the work of making that visible, just over there.